evening, folks. Alex is sitting this one out. I am expecting a guest, but he appears to be stuck in the transporter buffer at the moment. Yes, I know that's a cross-reference between Star Trek and Blake 7, but live with it. Good to see everybody here that's here. I'll start off waffling for a little bit to give him time to catch up. So start from the top and go down. Darren, Sadako, Halloween. Sorry, it's not November yet. Sadako, Jim, Miranda, all the regular crowd is here. Going to be here. The panda. I don't know about that. I thought we didn't do pandering on this channel. Blake 7 is I don't think there's anybody who does know what Blake 7 is. It's one of these weird things that seems to be all over the internet if you look for it. Started in 19. Well, yeah, this is true. Man, it's always. Then again, you live in Wales, so it's always scary in Wales anyway. As I say, Blake 7 was 1978 to 84. I think it was possibly started off in some ways as something like the BBC's answer to Star Trek. Certainly a lot more gritty than Doctor Who. Starts off with, for starters, the people in question escaped convicts. But of course, obviously, fortunately, this was made back when the world was sane. So sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a second. I just sorted Arco's comment. Yeah, it's certainly grittier than Doctor Who, but apparently there were occasions when they'd be filming Blake 7 in a quarry, they'd hear explosions, they go up to the top and they'll look down at the next pit in the quarry and find Doctor Who was filming there. So they were quite what's the word I'm looking? Incestuous isn't the word. They tend to be filming together, similar locations, similar settings. The series went on for a total of 4 years. It had, as we will cover later on, for me personally, it's got one of the two best endings. I don't know, Miranda. I don't know where the Sweeney was filmed. If only I had someone who was a Sweeney expert somewhere around, hanging around in the background. Wouldn't surprise me. They're all coming out about the same sort of time. We're talking late 70s, early 80s. That Blake 7 was very definitely different from Doctor Who. It was a more it was more of a team piece for start. You got your eponymous Blake. I have to admit, I hope there's nobody here for whom any of this is going to come as spoilers, because if it is spoilers for a show that's 50 odd years old, where have you been? But I think it's the only show I can think of off the top of my head where for half the run, the eponymous lead character ain't in it. I like that one. Blake 7 characters rolled into a Sweeney. Now that I'd like to see. Oh yeah. Yeah. I'd like to. I would.
And interrogating Avon, that'd be brilliant.
I was going to say, can you imagine? You get down safe, looks around, and on shoulder, you nicked my son. Yeah. Oh lordy, that would be an interesting crossover. Yes. Yeah. Dirty Dozen in Space. In fact, you saying that just makes me think. Also, Blake's also Suicide Squad. I'm not going to mention. I'm not going to mention games because I haven't played the game. But I must admit, I'm not that familiar with. I haven't seen the films either, but I'm relatively familiar with the idea. But yeah, Dirty Dozen, Suicide Squad. Oh dear, I can see where this is going to go. With the Federation, we haven't had our dinner. Now, yeah, okay. So right now, I'm kind of imagining a semi remake with and as usual on a live stream, I just had a completely brain fart on the actor's name, Ray Winston. With the Federation, but yeah, Ray Winston as Space Commander Travis. Oh dear. I really don't want to go any further with that line of thought. But yeah, I mean the basic setup was that was that yeah, hopefully I'll remember to get around to that, Miranda. Well, yeah, there's it starts off as, I mean, I was thinking earlier on today, there's some surprising, I don't know if parallels is the right word, but there's a few things in it that may seem a bit close to home in some ways for to some of the things that are going on in the modern day without getting too in the news and the like. But it starts off with anything that starts off with a starship called the Starship London. Fortunately, not captained by Sadiq Khan. It's a good one in my book. It's, I think they never define how far in the future it is. You've obviously got a sort of a semi-galaxy wide federation. There are aliens, but most of the aliens that we come across seem to be aliens in Star Trek. The reason for as I remember, they wanted to bring some drama into the show, and I think they found they were having, I seem to recall seeing they were having problems writing for the gang character because his main thing was he couldn't fight because of the limiter in his skull. And at some point they decided that they needed to, for drama purposes, they needed to kill off a major character, and Gan drew the short straw. Yes, there were some. There were some aliens in there. I'm thinking the main intelligent races seem to, I mean, because you got Cali, of course, was an R1, which was an alien race. Blake 7 is something I would like to see. I think. Oh, hold on a second. Oh, hold on. We have an expert. Okay. Apparently, I'm told by a claim by well-known hashtag. Apparently, Avon lives.
Avon lives. Hello.
Hello, we have a problem here.
Oh, yes, we do.
Not
Yes,
Houston, we have a problem. Avon, we have a problem. Being you. Welcome to ProblemBeing. If anyone doesn't know, Poppy is my guest.
Yeah, sorry, I was late. I was stuffing some venison sausages down my gullet and some mash, cheesy mash with some broccoli.
I'm kind of glad you added a bit about the mash. Otherwise, we might have that conversation. I was going to say it's probably all this is Poppy's fault because I've been watching and I caught you on doing the first of your many, I believe, streams with Clobbering Times.
Yeah,
yeah. When you
good old Clobby.
Yeah, we were talking about this. And I thought, yeah, and then all of a sudden other stream scenes keep turning up. I don't know if you heard, I do a wee bit of a waffle here. We've got most of our regulars.
I see. Hello, Sadako. Hello, Miranda.
Channel, Bobby, I don't you've actually been on here before, have you? We keep running across one of us, we keep running across each other in chats all over the place. And
yeah, we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hello, Jim. Hello, Darren.
They were looking for you on. I don't know if you caught Mr. Brune's stream, but they were after you for your opinion on a couple of things on Sunday. I'm thinking, is he going to be there? Is he going to be there?
Yeah.
Give us a shot to publish a stream, and you were there.
I haven't done any streams for a long time. I just can't be arsed at the moment. I've got things to do.
Yeah.
Real life stuff, you know.
Yeah, it happens, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so yeah, as I was saying, I mean, I only just started waffling a wee bit about the about the show. Yeah, so it's sort of I don't know if you had a chance to go on the chat, but apparently there was some people said that there are rumours of crossovers or cross-filming locations with things such as the Sweeney.
What?
Apparently there was someone said that Miranda was saying she seen rumours of tales of, because filming close together, you need to get films of. I think you were the one that actually mentioned it. Of when you're filming in a quarry and there's an explosion over the hill and there's Doctor Who next door.
Yeah, that actually did happen, didn't it, with Blake 7?
Yeah.
I mean, it's not the first time. I mean, you know, Paul Darrow's been more than a few sort of grassy knolls, hasn't he, in his time on Doctor Who during the Silurians and
wasn't his character originally going to be the character that he was in Web of Fear? No, one of the later ones would have come. Wasn't he because he appeared as a character? Wasn't that character originally going to be a recurring character? But Paul couldn't do it, so we got what's his name?
Benton.
No, not Benton. The
Yates.
Yates. We got Yates instead.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, I think there was someone that. Yeah, I think someone else was meant to play that part, and then it didn't happen. And I think I think Paul Darrow was meant to be a regular recurring character for Doctor Who. And sadly, we were robbed. We was robbed.
On the other hand, it'd be interesting if he'd been a recurring unit character.
Would we have got Blake 7?
Well, we've got Blake 7. But would we have got would we have got him in Time Lash?
Oh yes,
chewing the scene.
Chewing the scene.
Time Lash.
Justice for Time Lash. Hey.
Nice to meet you, ProblemBeing.
Hello, nice to meet you too.
Got questions to ask you later.
Oh, gold.
Mr. AWK is my co-host. Well, actually, it's his channel. I just co-host with him.
Pioneered.
It's like sod.
You commandeered it. That's what you've done. Not pioneered. I was going to say pioneered.
But anyway, you have a great show. I'm going to back out now. Colin, don't bugger up the ending. We've got a surprise for everyone at the end.
As if I would.
Okay, nice to meet you.
Wait a minute, you see me.
Nice to meet you, Regan.
Oh, what's that one?
Which one?
Thompson,
Oh.
Tom Blake went to a crossover between Doctor Who and Blake 7. Exchanging greetings.
That would have been great.
Oh yeah.
I think the idea was that they were just going to pass each other in a corridor or something, or in a quarry, and just sort of nod at each other, or it's just going to be a fleeting thing. It wasn't going to be like a big scene or anything.
Yeah.
I think that would have been just hilarious.
Oh yeah. Well, there's of course the famous at the risk of jumping on ahead to halfway through the series. Of course, there's the famous thing that at the end of season 2, another fantastic cliffhanger. In fact, I'm probably going to end up repeating half the points that you made on your stream because of remembering them. But
you got better memory than I do. I'll tell you that.
Well, I only saw it about a month ago.
Oh right,
4 years ago, whenever it was you made it. But where at the end of season, I think at the end of season 2, where the last thing you get is you see is Avon just goes fire.
Yeah.
Which
so good.
is so good, but then it's mirrored.
By the first episode of season 3.
No, not so much that, but it's mirrored. It's also mirrored.
Yeah.
Then you go to Next Generation.
Oh yeah.
With the end of Best of Both Worlds, not Best of Both Worlds, of the first two-parter over a series where Picard gets captured by the Borg.
Yeah.
I think that ends on Riker giving the command to open fire as well. If I remember correctly.
Obviously, they're copying Blake 7. Even if they weren't, they were.
Of course, they're copying Blake 7.
Of course, they were.
Yeah,
I know. Blake 7 is a Star Trek knockoff, but it's better than Star Trek. Sorry, it is. It just is. For me, it is. Sorry, Trekkers or Trekkies.
Absolutely, yeah.
But for me, Blake 7.
Yeah, yes, that was the other thing we were leading up to is that at the end of that, the enemies coming were supposed to be the Daleks, but weren't.
Well, because Terry Nation just decided, didn't he? He was umming and ahhing about it, about having the Daleks in there, and I think he was discussing it with. Who was he discussing it with? Can't remember, but he was discussing it with someone, and then he just decided no, he wanted to keep them in their own universe. But I mean, this one of those wonderful cult TV what ifs,
Oh yeah, yeah.
And I think one day in the future, people will be able to, make their own AI episodes of Blake 7, add the Daleks in if they want.
Oh yeah, yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
I can imagine that happening.
I think Wen's got this. I hadn't read that, but that's an interesting. I can see that. Firefly and Serenity is today's Blake 7. I can see that.
Well, I think the guy who I can't remember the name. Sorry, I can't remember the name of the guy who did Firefly, but I think he was a fan of Blake 7, wasn't he? Yeah, I think he denied it later. I think he denied it at some point that he even knew what Blake 7 was, but it's so patently obvious that he does.
Yeah.
I like Firefly. I've seen the movie. I've only watched sort of bits of episodes of the series, but I did enjoy it.
Yeah. Well, the part of the problems they did with Firefly was the studios insisted in showing it slightly out of order,
right?
Which is one reason why, but not massive. But yeah, it was another. But I mean, someone mentioned on the stream earlier. Also, Blake 7. Also, the Magnificent, not the Magnificent 7. The Dirty Dozen.
Yeah, well, I think the Magnificent 7 and the Dirty Dozen and Robin Hood, wasn't it? That's how they sort of, said it was. In space. The space opera. I mean, it's a darker Star Trek, but with a sort of, from the sort of. Not from the Federation's point of view.
Yeah, Blake and the Magnificent Dirty Half Dozen.
That's the one. Yes.
Yeah. Well, you say that. I mean, one of the two things I remember is, I was in my 20s when Blake 7 ended.
I was. Hold on. I was. When was it? 81 when it finished.
81, 82, I think.
So I would have been 6, 7.
Because I was thinking I would have been in. I think it was 78 to 82 when I looked it up.
Yeah.
So I would have been in the TA at the time it was on.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which is relevant because given the political situation we had in parts of the UK at the time, I remember. I can't remember when it was, but I remember someone from the cast say that actually, if you look at it from the Federation's point of view, they're the IRA.
Yeah.
And if you're saying this is the late 70s, early 80s, that's in England.
Yeah.
That'll
rattle a few cages, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Okay, but it makes you think. It's a point that actually makes you think, that makes you get the point that you look at it from the other point, from the other side. The Federation are only trying to maintain order.
Yeah, well, I mean, you could argue that, without going into deep spoilers, even though this show's been over for like a number of years, 40 years. 40 the final episode, it just slams that in your face and says, the power, the establishment, the elites always win. And that's a horrifying thought, and it's a powerful message. It's just like your idealism can be crushed, in a moment. And that's horrendous. I mean, I do believe that they intended, to believe that there would be a fifth series.
Well, the interesting thing being, of course, is that so I'm trying to look for. I can't find the book. I did have within arm's reach of my desk, Blake 7 Aftermath.
Yeah, I've been looking for that. It's really hard to find, and you got it, you jammy bastard.
Well, I've got that. I've got
Lucifer.
I've got Darrow by. I've got Avon by Paul Darrow as well.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm horrible, but yeah. Well, the thing that got me, of course, is that obviously you get the first 2 series. You've got the first couple of 3 episodes of bringing the crew together, and in fact, oddly enough, it doesn't kind of become a full crew until they get towards the end of season 1 when you get Aurak. So you've got the 7 of them are obviously Blake and.
Well, it's a bit of a weird one, isn't it? Because I mean, do you count the the Liberator? My brain. Yeah. Do you count that as a crew member?
The other thing is, more to the point, do you count Blake?
Yeah.
No. What I mean is Blake 7 people, including Blake? Or is Blake 7?
That's interesting. Yeah. Blake, well, there you go.
And 7 other people. So, yeah, but yeah.
Well, the joke is, isn't it? By series 5, it's Avon's 5.
Yeah. Yeah. But I mean, as I said, I honestly don't think I can think of another show. Where for half the run, the eponymous lead character wasn't in it.
Yeah.
Apart from the final episodes of seasons 3 and 4, because the end of season 2, Gareth Thomas and Sally Nibbett leave.
Yeah, off screen. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's what I find a bit. I don't know if it was 1970s, 1980s TV or what, but certainly you would get the sort of thing that people will complain about probably these days, and probably rightly so. I think is that you got Jenna and Callie had less and less to do as the show went on. You got 2 really good female characters there,
and they were kind of wasted.
Yeah, and yes, Marvel, they Disney, they did strong female characters did exist before 2017. Honestly, we had them, and they did hardly.
And before the Hunger Games, there.
Yes. Yes. interesting enough, Jennifer Lawrence actually wasn't in Blake 7. But
and she wasn't the first action female lead or anything, really.
No, I know. No, amazing.
Who knew? Well, she didn't. But there you go. But yeah, I mean, I think Blake 7 was quite was anything other than a cookie cutter show. It was very unique. It wasn't much in the way of sort of like your replacement for Doctor Who when because I remember it was on when Doctor Who wasn't on. Was that right?
I think so. Yeah, if I remember.
Vaguely remember that as a kid, but I had a lot of firsts. Then you had, in season is it season 2? Isn't it when Gang goes? I
think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was shocking. That was shocking. That I don't think that was something. I mean, that's sort of Game of Thrones, like everyone thinks Game of Thrones started that whole thing off. Any character could pop the clogs. No, Blake 7 was fair.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we mentioned it earlier on. I was saying, I think because Miranda was saying that hardly anybody remembers Gan. I respect with his agreement. I think most people do, partly because he was written out. But I suspect
he was a lot of people's favourite character.
I suspect they might have had a bit of a problem with they didn't know much what to do with him because he was
underserved.
Yeah, I mean he's the big bloke there and he can't hit anybody.
Yeah, but I mean they could have done the thing where they overcame that, or they could have used coming across the system, they could have got the system to, undo it, by force or whatever, or all sorts of things you could have done. Just a bit of creative writing. I mean, it's I don't know who to blame really for that, because Terry Nation did the first season, and then he brought in a bunch of other writers, including the wonderful Bob Holmes and so on and so forth.
Didn't he bring Brian Crouch on for that as well?
Yeah, Brian Crouch, fantastic. Yeah, fantastic writer.
Who then went on to do Star Cops.
Yeah, I mean, I love Brian Crouch's episodes. Some of them are better to me than Bob Holmes, and that's saying something, because Bob Holmes, great Doctor Who writer, great for Blake 7, but I think Chris Boucher just did a fantastic job.
Yeah, I know Straczynski was. Now I know Straczynski said that Doctor Who was a big influence on him, but I think Blake 7 was as well.
Definitely.
Definitely that one there.
And it's a shame we didn't have him instead of,
oh yes,
Silly T Davis or STD.
Wesley Tutters, one of the fans keeps coming up with some really, really good different versions for RTD actually stands for. Like I said, you can't spell retard like an RT and a D. But
yeah, he's lost his mind. We're not talking about that.
But I mean, it's interesting. I mean, there was a lot of crossover. You got quite a few people would have been in Doctor and Blake 7.
I love showing Blake 7 to new people and then watching their faces as isn't that wait, that's so and so, and then they spot the writers' names.
My absolute favourite one for that actually is my other. I think there are 3 for me from the 60s and the 70s from my grandma teenage years. There were 3 shows, all of which are science fiction, which are the ones I mainly remember. Yeah. Jerry Anderson coming in a very close fourth there, and that's Doctor Who, Blake 7, and ITV's Tomorrow People.
Oh yeah.
And just get Doctor Who fans, especially if they're Fifth Doctor fans, to see Peter Davison's first ever appearance. A Man for Emily in the Tomorrow People.
Yeah, he's got that long hair, isn't he? And he's like skinny as a rake.
Oh yeah, my God, it's hilarious.
Oh God,
yeah. But I can't remember. I can't think offhand of any actual crossovers on from BBC to ITV shows. But I mean, I was thinking I was going to, just before you took on, I was going, Blake 7 is a show which, yes, Colin Baker was in Blake 7. Colin Baker was Babe. Colin Baker was in Blake 7.
Babe and the Barbarian.
Yep, in the only episode where Villa actually got his end away and nearly had a happy ending. Nearly had a happy ending.
Nearly. Oh, I felt so bad.
Yeah.
I felt so bad for him. Oh, why did you go back?
Definitely my. I'm never sure if Avon or Villa are my favourite characters.
I think
too, but I think Villa a lot of the time is simply because he was the
Villa and Avon together. I think were great, especially in Orbit.
Yes,
that was fantastic. that was legitimately terrifying. You know, poor Avon. Poor Villa.
We nearly need to do £75. All right, Villa weighs £76.
Villa.
One of the last appearances, I think, after
you're always safe with me.
Yes. Well, there's one of I think Paul Darrow's last TV appearance. I think it was after he lost his legs. Was with Michael Keating on a Celebrity Pointless.
Yeah, it was Pointless. Yes. I remember seeing it.
I think they actually, because it was a science.
They won.
They did. It was a science fiction TV star special, wasn't it? And they won.
They won.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what did they win the big prize? I can't remember if they lost and then they still got something for it.
Yeah, well, they usually do, but they usually do with the celebrities. But yeah. It's funny. I'm going to wait till the first time I came across Pointless Celebrities, just to show my cynicism is not a product of the current day. I thought, okay, I genuinely thought, until I saw the show, I genuinely thought Pointless Celebrities was going to be a documentary about the likes of what these days would be called people who are celebrities but had absolutely no use.
Remember when celebrities used to be genuinely celebrated, because we didn't know anything about them. Now, because they lay their lives bare and they've got no talent.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why make stupid people famous? Remember when they used to shut their mouth and go and do these jobs and entertain us and get paid handsomely for it and live like kings? And then we just look at them and go, wow, aren't they moral, upstanding, fine people? And
not
always. I mean, quite, a lot of them are off their tits.
Exactly. Well, I genuinely think that. I came across. I loved. I used to watch it religiously. I thought the celebrity was a really clever idea. It was, but I mean, they lost. I was trying to bring it back in. I think they lost their. So they lost the two. I don't tell this for the two main leads. I mean, it's tempting because I never know how to rank them below Blake. Because do you put Jenna as the pilot or do you put Avon as a sort of second? Avon clearly became in charge seasons 3 and 4.
He was always in charge. Yeah. Just the others didn't know it yet.
Yeah. Which actually is great. I actually managed to trace it down to actually track this down, and I can tell you why Avon is my spirit animal.
Thanks.
Are you ready to take it slowly now?
Don't you ever get bored with being right?
Just with the rest of you being wrong.
Spot on.
Just with the rest of you being wrong. Yes.
Spot on. Yeah, he had all the best. That's why he took the role, because he was told, this is going to be a great part. So he obviously looked through episode 1. It's like, well, I'm not even in it. Then he read script for episode 2, and he was like, right, I'll take the part, because he just knew he could chew the scenery with those lines, and he got the best lines out of any of them, and he always came in with that cutting quip, and so deadpan and so deadly serious with it. And when he smiles, oh god, when he smiles, you're terrified because
Yeah.
it's not a smile you want to see, creeping across his face, because it generally means something's not good. Avon for me is possibly the greatest television character of all time. I absolutely love him. At least he's there with Tom Baker as the fourth Doctor and John Pertwee as the third Doctor.
I'm glad it's almost we rehearsed this, which we didn't do, but I mean, he's also got Avon. Has also got the only other clip I've actually got up here, of course, is for me personally, there were the two equally best for different partly different reasons, best final scenes ever. And one of them is Avon's. This is going to play. Come on.
It was playing.
No, it's not going to. Oh God!
It was playing. It was playing.
Yeah.
Spoilers.
Well, all I would say is, given that there's how many episodes and box sets of Big Finish now?
Loads, yeah.
Their second biggest. I'm absolutely certain it's their second biggest IP
range.
After Doctor Who. Range after Doctor Who.
I've listened to all the Liberator Chronicles. I'd say that Blake 7 output is 1,000 times better than the current Doctor Who output. My God, it's night and day. It's almost as if it's kind of gone past the radar because none of the kids are interested, so therefore they're not pandering as much.
I listened to their. In fact, I actually did a stream in the Rabbi on a couple of years ago now. I listened to Big Finish's Tomorrow People output, and apart from one story, all of those only actually have one of the original characters in it, and that's way better than most of what they're putting out.
Yeah, it's garbage. I mean, absolute dog shite. But the Blake 7 stuff, I mean, right up until Paul Darrow's passing, was top notch. And I think the very last episode, the last audio adventure he was in, was so. I was very dubious about what they were going to do, but it was so perfectly done. It was the most beautiful, fitting tribute, I think, to Avon. I think it was absolutely just pitched perfectly with what material they had of his recordings.
Yeah,
and
to listen to get back into listening to those.
Yeah, I was going to do that actually recently, but it was such a beautiful send off, and I was actually sat there in tears because it was just really, really very nicely done. Because he wasn't in it for the most of it, because I think they only had so much, but they worked it into the story perfectly, and the last words were just. It's really got you. It's worth listening to.
They did that also with another one with Big Finish. A lot of my favourite stuff of theirs is actually not the mainline. A lot of my favourite Doctor Who stuff, for example, is their spin-offs. And they did that with Jago and Lightfoot when think it was Christopher Benjamin that was passed away, and they did one set of story afterwards where they actually did a lot back. And again, they did again with what they actually got of him.
Yeah,
that's one thing they can do with those ones. I think Big Finish also. I've got someone. I think it's a Big Finish when they also did a remake of Blake 7.
Yeah, I've only heard the first one.
I think it was Colin Salmon's Avon. Okay, but not that successful. But
Bit mid.
yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, the thing is, sorry, I don't get Colin Salmon. Maybe a reasonably good actor, but he's trying to do Paul Darrow.
No one can do Paul apart from Clobby. Clobby can do Paul Darrow.
Yeah. and Fab Productions, yes. Well,
But I mean, how can anyone else but Paul Darrow deliver lines like "I am not expendable, I'm not stupid, and I'm not going"?
Yeah.
Just the best lines.
Yeah.
I mean, that was appalling. But
like Blake 7 is one of those shows which I would. If they hadn't switched the Lard Hadron Collider on and we hadn't fallen into Clown World,
facts.
I would really like to. I would really give a remake of Blake 7 a chance. I would again. Obviously, you've got because so few of the original cast are still there anyway. I would give it, as I say, under competent, sane direction. I'll give it a chance. But I think the other option is something that Rabbi's mentioned a couple of times is you don't quite remake it. You
move on. Yeah.
What you do is you have 100 years in the future. I'm not quite sure. You have to sort of do some bit of jiggery pokery. But his idea was. And I suspect he wasn't 2 hours ahead of us. He wasn't.
Well, you could do like a Tron Legacy thing. You do like a Blake's Legacy or Avon's Legacy or something, and then build a whole new crew. They find another system ship, Liberator.
What the Rabbi's idea is sometimes is literally they come sometime 100 years in the they come across the Liberator.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure you'd have to.
Well,
but basically, with all the surviving cast
ship.
Members asleep in hypersleep, so you bring them out. So you've still got Villa, you've still got Dana because you've got the lass that does her rather than Josette Simon, etc. If you want them on there, and you go on from there, and then they can be the seed for, as you say, for Blake 7, the Next Generation member. That you could do.
Yeah, I mean, the Liberator was completely destroyed.
Yeah,
so
that's one problem. You can't really do that.
No, it'd have to be a system ship, and maybe you could sort of resurrect it that way, and I mean, as long as it's it would have to be. You'd have to have that. It'd have to have that ship.
Yeah. Your first. The first story will be, well, hold on a second, but the Liberator was destroyed. How did you
make it a mystery and then work out how to?
As I say, the first one will be just don't let Jar Jar Ravens anywhere near, or you never find out anything. But yeah, your first one will be, how did they come to be on this this Liberator 3? Because Liberator 3, I like it. Star Liberator 3, because I mean they exactly, yes. Oh no. Actually, I meant to click on Starco's comment.
Oh, that's hard going.
Miranda come up with that one. Yes.
Yeah, that was so sad and if you didn't tear up over Zen, I don't know, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, I mean, it's I mean, I was going to say exactly that, but you think about it, because they do it? Was it halfway through when it was in? No. When it was they do with season 1, when they come across Aurak, first thing he does is he predicts the Liberator being destroyed.
Yep.
Then they get around that point, but it's not the Liberator, it's an identical sister ship to the Liberator.
But it is the Liberator in season 2.
But then in season 3 it is, but the way they do it, exactly. So we know the Liberator is not the only ship of that design.
No, because we've seen other system ships, the pursuers, but I think that's a good idea, and you could still have like Zen. You could have like the Zen that was with the Liberator crew could sort of infect.
Yeah.
Like he's so so sentient that he manages to find like some kind of light wave that he can sort of transmit upon, and sort of into the.
He dumps his personality core.
Yeah.
There are so many ways. Yeah, there
are.
You could do that.
I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to a remake, a straight remake. I wouldn't be opposed to something in the same universe as long as it doesn't bring in the modern audience.
Exactly.
Because nothing terrifies me more than the banality of the moron class who comes into a fandom, pisses all over it, says it's mine now, and then proceeds to bang on about pronouns and being upset about everything, and do as I say, make the show anything but the original, and then I'll be happy.
Companies who do issues like SBI, yes, we will go into that.
No.
But yeah, exactly. You saying that about no one could do Avon but Paul Darrow. If you're talking without necessarily having a relationship, my one question would be, can John Coleshaw do Paul Darrow? Because John Coleshaw does an absolutely fan. You heard him when he does the Brigadier with Tom Baker, or John Coleshaw's Brigadier is because it's on audio, you could be Nick Briggs.
On audio it's different, but I mean, if you're doing a TV series, that would be it doesn't look the part.
No. I mean, you. I'm just thinking if it was purely for the voice, if you could do it, as we said earlier on, CGI idea, CGI idea. Yeah, the problem is, if you said, the thing is, what gets me about this idea is for modern audiences, for the current day audience, they don't actually seem to get the logic that is the direct opposite of timeless. Something is timeless because it is not
reflecting the modern day. Yeah. That's it. They're so obsessed with navel gazing today that the concept of anything timeless doesn't seem to appeal to them. It has to be reflecting them personally. They have to see themselves on the screen. Who the hell wants to come back from day's work or day out doing stuff or doing the cooking and then seeing your bloody self on the screen? Who wants that? Nobody wants that. We want to see absolutely any bugger else other than ourselves on the bloody screen. I don't want to see myself. I've never demanded to see a gay Jewish doctor or anything like that, or Blake Seven to be in my image. No. I mean, what a bunch of nonsense. I mean, it defeats the object of fantasy and science fiction. I mean, science fiction, good science fiction, obviously reflects our modern world anyway. That's what science fiction does.
Yeah.
But it's not so on the nose that it has to touch on everyday issues, and you certainly wouldn't bring things like pronouns or any of that stuff into it. You have to think this is like hundreds, possibly thousands of years into the future. We don't know. This is a whole new calendar. We don't know what's happened. So it's far removed from our petty modern day foibles. It's a totalitarian. I mean, ironically, so is everything we're going through today. But
are you sure?
Yeah, yeah, the Federation One guys. Yeah. So I mean, I would have loved the idea a few years ago. Now I just think no.
Yeah.
When the rumor was that Chris Chibnall was going to bring it back, I was shitting myself. I was shitting myself, but thankfully, I think that's not happening. Yeah. Can you imagine? Oh God.
No, I don't want to.
Well, the Avon would be made a woman. Absolutely. Today, it would be a lesbian woman with Paul Darrow's haircut,
All I can say
Giving it
for
all the
that,
sass.
all I can say for that, and there's a few people really won't get this one. Ding dong, Avon calling.
Yeah. It just wouldn't fly. I mean, but you know that's what they would do if they did it now. Or it'd all be women. The entire crew would be women, probably. All space lesbians together or something.
Yeah.
Intersectional space lesbians, of course.
Well, of course.
You know.
But yet, I mean, it was a diverse crew.
Yeah.
You had...
I'm going to have some venison sausage, excuse me.
I haven't had venison in years. The last time I had venison was at a... we used to have my old reenactment society's Christmas annual banquets. We had venison there. Very nice. So yes, I have eaten Bambi.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think but they were. It was a diverse, in the best sense of the word. Yes, it was until Dana came along. It was all white people.
Like it was back in the 70s, primarily.
Exactly that, which is exactly what it was. It reflected society.
I mean, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. And I think Dana's one of my favorite characters. Anyway, and she was a great character, you know, a feisty young girl. You know, so her father was murdered by. I would like to have seen her. Enact revenge upon Servalan for what happened, and she never got the. Every time she came close, something stopped her from doing.
I must say, I didn't really take to any of the characters that came in season 3 and 4. Glenys Barber was well. I mean, you probably
Dempsey and Makepeace. I remember.
I was going to say, which had all the hair cut off, but
she was a bit of eye candy, wasn't she? That
very definitely eye candy. Yes.
Yeah.
Her character was okay. It was an interesting character.
They didn't really have enough time really to develop her, or they started to, then they kind of forgot about it.
Yeah.
I think that's a problem when you got different writers and they're focusing on different story aspects of the story and putting certain characters forward and leaving certain characters behind.
I mean, the problem with the entire season 4 also, of course, is
season D, you heathen.
It has quite a lot in common with season 5 of Babylon 5. In the first they didn't know they weren't sure they were going to get season 3. They got a season 3 and they were told that was it. The first that the cast apparently first the cast knew that there was going to be a season 4 of Blake 7 is when they watched the credits roll at the end of season 3, and the BBC announces as Blake 7 will return next year.
Yeah, I know, that's hilarious. I mean, that wouldn't fly today, would it?
But so they've had an ending, which is one reason why. Again, actually thinking about it, similarities with Babylon 5. Season 5 come in. Season 5, you've lost a lot of people's favorite character. Season 5 comes in, you've lost Ivanova. Season 4, Jan Chapel doesn't come back, so Callie dies off screen.
Yeah, that was so sad.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
She was despite the fact she was I think one of my favorite characters, Callie. But so they did this now, which is why they'd already destroyed the Liberators, and you have to bring back. And my God, actually, I would love to see a reboot purely to make them have a ship's computer called Slave. Just for that, I would like to watch people's heads explode when they come. And because was it Peter Tubman? did the voice.
Yeah, he did.
Was
He did
so
both, didn't he?
hopeless and subservient as the computer.
It was obsequious with all the
Yes.
toadying and all the hand grubbing and god, yeah. I didn't like Slave very much. I wasn't that.
It didn't, but you
Wasn't
could,
that sad to see him go?
no, you could see the Dickensian.
What pervert makes such an obsequious computer as that? I just don't. Weird. I mean, I guess when you look at what was the blonde haired guy's name? The character I can't remember. The one who fell foul of the Sea Devil that wasn't the Sea Devil.
Oh yeah, I was scanning through it earlier on today to catch that little bit with Dana and Avon. I've forgotten.
Well, anyway, he was an arrogant so and so. So I mean, I guess he would love someone sort of bootlicking him.
Then again, if they remade that, Slave would probably be voiced by Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Don't. No. They should be called Supreme Missy or something,
Yeah, Server would be Supreme Mistress. Yeah, but
Well, what would the relationship be between Avon and Servalan in if there was a reimagined series? That would be even more S&M, wouldn't it? Would it? I don't know. Are people afraid of sex again these days? I can't remember where we're at.
That would be your interracial lesbian relationship, obviously.
Of course, yeah, but because Avon will be a stunning and brave lesbian, and Servalan also would be. Yes, of course. She don't need no man. How could I not see it?
The thing is, you actually wouldn't need to change Servalan's haircut at all.
No, but she'd have to have more sensible shoes.
Yeah, because I must admit, I'm one of the few people, straight people, no offense intended, to those who feel different ways. I never thought Jacqueline Pearce was particularly attractive as Servalan because I hated that pixie haircut.
I love that.
Which is why I did fancy
Jenna.
No, well, yeah, Jenna, but
Kelly.
The one at the end we were talking about earlier on, Glennis Barr.
Glennis Barr.
Sulin.
Yes, Sulin. Yeah.
But I can. These no, I don't want to think about the remake. But I mentioned I was shown earlier on. I have to say, since no one's actually picked up the hook I planted because they've probably forgotten it. My equal, to completely different to Black 7, but my equal best with Avon for best final scene ever. Oddly enough, it's also the the last episode of a full season of a series which starts with the letters BLA. It's Blackadder.
Yeah.
And the last scene where they go over the top and Blackadder goes forth. Obviously, different idea things, but that is equally powerful, and that equals Avon for me for the best final scenes of a show, best closing scenes of a show.
Definitely.
Yeah, but no, I don't know. But then, of course, as some people who've listened to certain audios know, Blake 7 does take place in the Doctor Who universe because Avon did escape and he went undercover in a place called Caldor City.
Oh yeah, I've heard the audios. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. There's some really good Caldor City stuff. There was also a couple of other audios he did like that directly followed on from Blake, but it wasn't Caldor City audios. It was something else. What were they called?
I think Caldor City was Magic Bullet, which I don't think was anything to do with. Never was anything to do with. They weren't the company that became Big Finish, but obviously I think Big Finish have licensed them. I think so. I think I've got Caldor to the Big Finish once.
It was God, I have to. Yeah, there was. You can find them on on YouTube. Logic of Empire, I think it was. Yeah, The Logic of Empire. Have you heard that one?
No, I haven't. I don't know that one. I should have to look that one up.
Yeah, it's on YouTube. It's called the Logic of Empire. So it's Avon survived, and yeah, you just have to go and listen to that. And it's a bit melodramatic. It's my personal headcanon is that the smile that Avon gave at the end was he was pointing his gun at the lights, and then shot out the controller for the lights, and then the lights went out, and he ducked, and then obviously they're just because they're all standing around him in a circle. They're the classic,
circle
duck,
shot.
yeah, boom, 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 and obviously no one can see what's going on.
What you mean? 13 TARDIS just surround him and froze him in time.
That's it. That's
and all the Daleks shot. Sorry. Wrong.
Not your Moffatisms here, young man. No, I mean it. That's how I see it, and maybe Villa survived, or but Aurak obviously is somewhere. And I think as well that Blake isn't Blake. Blake is remember there was
There's a clone of Blake. Yeah,
a clone of Blake. I say that was the clone.
Yeah. Well, I remember and I can't remember if it's from Aftermath or what, but I remember someone theorizing years ago that if you look at it in place, you apparently see all the crew killed apart from Avon, but Taran.
But you don't see any blood.
You don't see
that's not unusual for Blake.
No, exactly. But even with that, Taran is severely wounded. Like the drop thing. Villa is let's say calling Villa a coward is underestimating him. So
he's a brave coward.
No, what I'm saying though, if anyone's going to just see people go vroom and manage to fake his death, it's going to be Villa.
Yeah, definitely.
You can see those. There are ways which headcanon can do it, as I said.
Or they could all simply have been stunned.
Like I genuinely can't remember how they did it in Aftermath. I wish I could, but because I know.
Well, read the book out to the audience. Just read the whole thing.
I can't find it.
I thought you found it.
No, I didn't. It's my place to mess. It's somewhere in here. And unfortunately,
I've heard it's not brilliant from all the people I've spoken to about it. I'd like to read it. I don't understand why they haven't turned it into an audio drama.
No, I don't. I mean, it would have been that because there's several books because there's Blake's, there's that one. There's Avon Terrible Aspect by Paul Darrow, which I think is Avon's, and there's also a couple which I think are Project Avalon ones, which I suspect are actually novels of the episodes rather than separate stories. But I'm not sure of that. So I'm just quickly trying to look something. But no, I'm not. I've not. I don't think I've got all of them. I know I've got Avon, A Terrible Aspect. I know I've got Aftermath.
Yeah. There's Lucifer as well.
That one I haven't got.
That's written by Paul Darrow as well.
Oh, wow.
And that's another what if after the events of Blake. It's a bit dry, I'd say. It's not how I would envision it, but let's put it that way. But yeah, they did make that into an audio, so it's worth at least going and checking it out.
Well, I mean, if you think that what Big Finish were doing with the new adventures from Doctor Who, for example. As you said, there you've definitely got you've definitely got scope for them to do something there, without question. There's definitely scope there for them. It will be definitely an interesting idea, and an interesting thing to do. I think that there's a lot of these. There's a lot of those things like that. I mean, I think that idea so much, and I would love to see that a great crossover. You just got Blake and Avon walking past the Doctor or something like that. But of course, I mean, not Paul Darrow, Gareth Thomas. Was Blake 7 before or after Star Maidens?
It was after Star Maidens, I think. Because that was Gareth Thomas's first foray, I think, into sci-fi, and I think he gave up on that to do Blake 7, didn't he?
I think so. Yeah,
I think so.
But of course, he also actually did another one of my favourite kids TV series. Back when you could make kids or young adult TV that was actually interesting and thought provoking, was Children of the Stones.
Yeah.
And if people don't remember Children of the Stones, it was actually filmed in Avebury, which is a little village, actually inside a stone circle, a big stone. Well, a stone. Well, it's not really a circle, I don't think. Avebury. It's a standing stone.
I was there a few years ago.
Yeah, I was. Yeah, I've been to Avebury a long time ago as well,
and I went down Cheddar Gorge as well.
But I went 2 or 3 times for shows and drove past Stonehenge, but the problem was every time I went past there, it took me about an hour to get past Stonehenge because the traffic on that stretch of the road was absolutely atrocious. It was between 2 roundabouts, but it was terrible traffic every time. Maybe because I was going on Fridays, of course, which didn't help.
There's a bunch of druids.
No, you couldn't get that close anymore.
I haven't tarmacked it yet.
Well, I'm sure.
For health and safety.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure when I was a kid, I did go there, and you could actually go to Stonehenge, but I was a kid a long time ago.
No, I think they changed that in the 80s, didn't they, or 90s or something? Yeah.
And then you stopped, and then you couldn't touch the stones. And I'm not sure unless you were druid at midsummer day and midwinter, you were allowed to go anywhere near them. I don't think.
Did you know that they were? Did you know that those Stonehenge was reconstructed?
Yes.
In the 1950s or something? Was it? Or
something like that. They
1930s.
They've fallen down.
Concrete. They put concrete in them to keep them standing up.
Yeah, they for some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God.
They still didn't discover the Pandorica underneath it though, so didn't do that good a job.
Well, no. Well, maybe they did. We just haven't been told.
Well, this is true. Yeah, this is true. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Landing, spacecraft landing things. You thought the pyramids were landings. Nah. No. Why would you want to land in Egypt when you can land in England?
That's it. Did those feet in ancient times?
Exactly. Well, they didn't touch down on England's green and pleasant land because they stayed on top of Stonehenge when they landed on the landing pad.
That's it. Now it's a bloody motorway. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Maybe that was meant to be a landing strip. Who knows?
Yeah. Well, you've actually got the. If I remember right, you've actually got Stonehenge. Isn't just the circles. You've actually got a walk up to it. If I remember right, and I think it goes back towards. Is it Cadbury?
Well, haven't they found like there's an even bigger circle around Stonehenge or something? It goes out quite a long way, and there's
I think so. Yeah,
and they're like, oh, there's more.
I think they found remains, or they found the holes where they think wood used to be around it as well.
Yeah, they used to be wooden henge, and then it's a massive burial ground, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah. There you go.
But then again, as a comic from the 1980s told me, apparently it's also hiding King Arthur's tomb. which will be discovered in 3000 AD.
Well, that's conveniently after we're long and gone, you know.
Interestingly, it's
all the things I predict will come true, and they will come true. Will happen after you're all dead.
Exactly.
Trust me.
The weird thing about this is I did one of the first streams I did on FFSI. I did one was about King Arthur, and there's an I years ago now I discovered audio books and audio lectures, and there's a series of them in that Americans do. When they do the history of that, they do it really good because their academics is good. And there's this one I listened to, and this lady does it, and she talks about this this comic series Camelot 3000 in this thing about King Arthur and how the legend of King Arthur changed. And it literally starts off an alien invasion and some kid coming across and discovering and banging into this stone wall before it comes back, and it's pit under Stonehenge where he's doing a
it's the Seventh Doctor. It's Merlin. That's what it is.
Yeah, basically. he goes back and he reads this thing, his headlines Arthur, and he gets back and he's Arthur in totally, as I now as a medieval reenactor now know, totally and utterly inappropriate armageddon. So goes, how long accept Arthur, King of Britain? But I mean, there's so much you were saying earlier on. You were saying about Dana. I thought Dana, I think, is an example of sort of what one might call these days, what might sort of refer to as the Buffy effect, where you've got teenagers played by 25, 30-year-olds. I always got the impression that Dana was probably supposed to be probably under 20.
Yeah, I'd say like 18 or 19 or something like that. Yeah,
and I think Josette Simon was older than that when she played the character. I mean, nothing against the actress; she played it.
Wasn't she fresh out of drama school?
Yes, I think it was. Yeah,
that was her first job, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
No, she just wants to distance herself as much as possible from it. I'm like, why?
I think the only other thing I actually remember seeing her in was an episode of Death in Paradise a few years ago, which reminds me, I've got last night's episode of Death in Paradise to watch. But the only thing on BBC I do watch.
I don't watch anything on the BBC at all. I told them to F off, basically. I got one of their red letters through, and I was just right. I've had enough of this because I don't watch it. I don't watch any live TV anymore. Don't. I've got Sky. I'm paying for it, but my contract ends in March, so I have to keep paying for it. I only watch things on box sets anyway. Even then, there's nothing on there, so I can't wait to get rid of it. And yeah, BBC, no, nothing.
Well, the only thing I watch from the BBC, is that and the spin-off Beyond Paradise, because I quite like. But that's the only things on what I'm.
Well, I hope it's worth paying your TV license for. That's what I
was going to say. I don't get it via partly because it's more convenient to get it otherwise. But I do still pay. I do keep. I've got to cancel on because I haven't switched the TV on for years. But no, that's the only thing. I have no interest in anything starting in May either.
Yeah, cancel your TV license. Just do it. You'll feel better for it. You know your money's being used for evil.
Oh, is it? Oh, when? Thank you for that. Excellent. No, that's good news. Beyond Paradise is back on Friday.
There you go.
Well, I say literally about the only thing, but I think that's the only thing I've seen Josette Simon in. I've seen. I'm not sure, but what I found was quite interesting is I think. I mean, it obviously succeeded. You can tell how strong a character I think Avon was by the fact that you've got 2 seasons of. I mean, it'd be only 13 episodes a season, I think. If that,
yeah.
Of the show, you've got half the show's run, given the caveat of the walk back when they thought of finish it, without the lead character, and he only literally comes back in what what are supposed to be the 2 final episodes.
Well, he comes back in. Was it season 3?
He came back, I think, in the last episode of season 3.
Yeah.
And that was not supposed to be.
That wasn't him. Yeah.
Yeah. And then he comes back in season 4. But Gareth Thomas said he only came back in those ones because they were the last one. They were expected to be the last ones. But it shows that the story writing and that the show can last 2 seasons.
That's the strength of Paul Darrow, you know.
I was going to say, but then again, Doctor Who lasted about 5 years without a doctor, but that's a different matter. That's
true. That's not necessarily a good sign, is it? No. But in this case, you know, before the insanity, it really was, because, you know, Paul Darrow, Avon's character, finally got what he wanted, you know, the Liberator, and then he lost that. And then it was just like, right, we're just gonna, you know, rob them blind and make lots of money. But he, you know, he still felt he had to honor the cause and find Blake, and then you know, it was quite savage how all over a misunderstanding.
Yeah,
it's God.
Blake says, "I've always trusted you, Avon."
Yeah,
you know, I mean, he always
what it's worth. Yeah.
He always knew what Avon was, and Avon probably even more so than Avon did.
Well, Avon gets a bad rep, you know, because I mean, obviously Orbit kind of threw him right back to season 1 again, you know, really. But beyond that, you know, there were times in his character when he could have left them alone and taken the Liberator and sodded off. But he didn't. Remember, he was like, I can't remember what was the episode, but he was and what to do, and then by the time he made up his mind, you know, that they were ready to come back. He kind of played for time because he didn't want to really leave them, you know. Well, I mean, and stuff like that, little things like that make him more nuanced.
Yeah, he thinks he's such and he is such a smart guy, but then he doesn't realise until the last moment that no, his girlfriend wasn't murdered. His girlfriend was the one that set him up in the first place.
Yeah,
and then he kills her.
And then he killed her. I love that. That's so you know, great. And then like having Servalan chained up in the basement. Oh my God.
I always thought there was. I'm gonna have to rewatch it. I haven't rewatched it. I must in a while. I always sort of thought, I don't know if it's just my headcanon, but there was something between him and Callie.
Yes.
So, sort of,
and definitely something between Blake and Jenna as well.
Yeah, definitely. But I mean, with Avon and Callie, it was a sort of a tension there that it was never a major thing. But
it was kind of like a thing of convenience or something.
Well, I mean, that it was just I got the feeling there was some sort of attraction between them that they felt, but they never actually really followed up that much. But it did affect how they reacted towards each other.
I think they might have had a thing, and then off screen, you know, I'm just getting that reading, and then they kind of realised that, you know, the attraction is more mental than physical. You know what I mean? I think that's something like I don't know, because she's like the emotional one, he's like the emotionless one, you know. He's very, you know, he restrains it, or he sort of fights that emotional attachment. I mean, it's there, but he keeps it kind of, you know, buttoned up.
Yeah.
And then
not once in the entire series does he get taken over by an alien, whereas Callie gets taken over by an alien every other week.
Well, that's because she's an empath. So that's why I think he survives that kind of thing, because he's so strong-willed and so strong-minded that he's not empathetic at all. He's got no empathy. I mean, he's a sociopath, right? Really.
Yeah.
To a degree, you know, I think not totally, because I think he does deep down care. But surface level wise, I think he's managed to build this facade around him for so long because he's had to, that he's very sort of guarded and protected from these sort of psychic attacks and things like that. You know,
well, the thing is, I mean,
not so easy to read.
I will be tempted to quote Benedict Cumberbatch's Sherlock. I'm not a psychopath. I'm a high-functioning
Functioning
sociopath.
sociopath. Yes.
And I think that, and I suspect that Avon also, perhaps he'd had to put some of those because he was so much smarter than everyone else around him. In a society perhaps that didn't necessarily value intelligence in its general populace.
Yeah, well, maybe there's something of the savant about him. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
As you said, I mean, you know that sketch. Do you know get tired of being right? No, only with everybody else being wrong. Sort of
He's a genius.
Yeah.
He's a computer genius. He knows his stuff. He's walked the block more than once. More than twice, more than 1,000 times probably.
Yeah.
He's seen death. He's seen betrayal. He's seen all the people he's ever trusted betray him. Right. So he's got betrayal on the brain, and he just doesn't trust people. And it takes basically 4 seasons for him to trust people. And then at the very end, he's like, "You betrayed me."
Yeah.
Again, so,
I wish I should have clipped the whole bit there. Did you betray us?
Yeah.
Did you betray
me?
Yeah. And it's so powerful. But I mean, the themes that you think that Blake's have done. I mean, if you think about it, what is it that they do Blake for? We never find out much about what Blake's history was before the start of the series. We know he was in opposition, and we know he was brainwashed, etc. But then they stitch him up for something we probably shouldn't mention since he's going out on YouTube. Something that is very much in the news these days, to do with
fiddly diddly dee.
fiddly diddly deeing with humans under the age of 13.
Something like that.
But they they do that, and the shock on his they deal with that sort of thing. They deal with him being set up by his defense team know he's being set up. It's an extremely well-rounded storyline.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, like that whole scene where he meets his counsel for the first time, and like that pod appears, it just materializes. So hold on a minute, they didn't have transmatter, transmats, or anything like that, or transporters.
Good night, Miranda.
Good night, Miranda. But they didn't have that, that kind of technology yet. That pod just appears, doesn't it? Where it's like a little cell, and remember that it just fades in.
Yeah.
What was that about? And that was never addressed ever again. But anyway, it just reminds me.
The thing is that it's odd that the first episode is very, very different.
Well, the first two.
The first two are very different from the rest of it.
Yeah.
Until they find they've got the Liberator, but I almost get vibes from the first one of that. He's got big the way it's setting similar vibes in a way to Logan's One, set in the city when they get out. They escape the city, and just little things like that. I mean,
I love how they took their time with that, because it does a great job at setting up. The first 2 episodes, I think, are, for anyone new to Blake Seven, it's kind of that you'll either leap on at that point, or you'll be like, but then you have to kind of persevere if you're not sure. I personally love it. I think I'd like to have seen more of the Federation on Earth at points. I think that could have been really interesting. I think if they'd have done a season 5, that would have been a really great place to go back to, and it would have been quite fitting, because the first episode was the way back, so they could go back home and then take on the Federation on its home turf at its weakest point.
Well, that's also that's something that that would have lent itself to That's a very good point.
Yeah.
Very good point. But when you think it's something that could lend itself to non main lead stories, two stories, either to that's something where you could lead itself to the occasional backstory episode of any of the main characters, how they got to be where they are, or again the occasional episode or spin-off even of stories from within the Federation, everyday life of the Federation almost.
I mean, there's so much you can do with it. I mean, it's such a rich world. But I just don't know how that would fly today. I mean,
no.
Going back to what Darren Atkin is saying is that when you consider that the first episode of Blake 7 went out at 6 p.m.
Yeah.
It has some rather strong themes for a family viewing. And you think about Russell T. Bloody Davis, right, sitting there going, there's a problem with Davros of Old. No, there isn't. The problem is you are kowtowing to the lowest common denominator. You're patronizing not only yourself but your audience. And I think that when I watched Blake 7, I was 5, 6, 7 years old, about 5 or 6 years old.
Wow.
4, 5, 6, round about then. And I remember watching it. I think it was after, because I remember seeing Destiny of the Daleks when I was 4. Wow. So it would have been between Destiny of the Daleks or City of Death, around season 17 and 18. So it would have been between then, and that's when Blake 7. I remember watching that then. And it was quite an intense show for a little kid. But I loved it. And I didn't feel patronized. I didn't feel like I shouldn't be watching it. And I felt great watching it. It made me happy. I remember that. And I just think shows like Blake 7 and Doctor Who were written for intelligent 10-year-old boys.
Yes. And
I think now television is made for dumb, unintelligent 30-year-olds of either whatever persuasion. And and I just think it's such a shame.
Yeah.
That they feel that that you're the modern audience that they so desperately crave are that insipid and that stupid. That's how they see you. They see you as people that need sort of pampering and cuddling and it's so patronizing and sanctimonious and dripping in this kind of condescension. People like RTD see themselves as top of the pile, and you poor little people need to be fed all the tidbits of his wonderful genius that you could possibly absorb. But it can't be too dangerous. It can't be, because it's got to be and it's just so, and you can't offend anybody, and fuck off. Blake 7 didn't do that. It didn't really pull back its punches, and it was great. I'm 4 or 5 years old watching that.
I found out about the first time I found out. Not just Blake 7, but science fiction in general. I first found out about something which about history of ancient of Constantinople. Anika riots and horse racing from an episode of The Tomorrow People. It also happens to be that one introduced the fact that proves to me that I'm not racist, because my first crush was Elizabeth Adare. As Elizabeth in The Tomorrow People. But I was about 14 at the time, so we'll allow that. As a crush, not the fact that she's black. But where they're basically, they are I don't know if you ever saw the original Tomorrow People. The only show I know, I think, that took 40 years to cross the Atlantic and be massacred by the Americans. But the basic premise of this particular episode is that there's these aliens and they breed, or it's called the Blue and the Green, is what this series is called. And they're aliens, and they basically, in order for their eggs to hatch, they have to have psychic area of violence.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah. I remember
and
that.
the reasoning is called the blue and the green is that the last time they were there, they laid their eggs in Byzantium.
Yeah.
And they caused riots. And I was actually listening to someone who was interested enough, actually the same lady I was saying I almost does the King Arthur things, talking about the emperors at the time. And the historical aspect is true. There were horse racing teams for colours, and the emperor supported the whites. I think
That's
it was.
right. Yeah.
And he slaughtered, and he actually had them. It was
Put to
actually
death, yeah.
that literally that episode. I later found out introduced me to some of these things. Doctor Who's on the same thing. Blake Seven's
Well, yeah, you look at the wheel in space. You know, there's a wonderful documentary on YouTube that a fan made about the science behind the wheel in space. Not one of the greatest Doctor Who episodes ever, but the actual making of the model of the wheel in space was actually based on actual science and ideas at the time. That's the difference between the Doctor Who of then and the Doctor Who of now. Is ultimately it was grounded in actual science. You know, these writers would actually go and have an interest in science, interested in engineering, you know, interested in other things other than science fiction, but certainly in things in the real world, in real science. And they would talk about science in the pub, you know, and they would learn, you know, to have friends who were physicists, because, you know, we're not talking about dim-witted people. We're talking about people who went to Oxbridge and all the rest of it. And that is now seen as, you know, toxic because, you know, it's educated white men. Oh, no. How terrible. So you get rid of all of that. And now you have people who don't know anything about bloody science, not interested in science. They're just interested in, you know, presenting, look how smart and clever I am. And it doesn't really come across because you're not smart, you're not clever, you don't know anything. And it's quite clear. I mean, you think things like timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey, that's not clever writing. That's not clever writing at all. That's not nonsense. Now you've got, you know, the sonic screwdriver, which you can now make force fields and do all these other things, and it's complete nonsense. You know, you're just dumbing it down. But the thing is with Doctor Who in the past is that it had history, it had science backing it. Now they're trying to rewrite history, so it had, like, you know, diverse people in London in the 1800s. It just wasn't like that.
Yeah,
you know, but it's patronizing, it's ahistorical, it's ascientific, it's nonsense.
But I mean, it's also, no, that's again, that's fine. But yeah, no, but I mean, it's why it's why 40 years on we still talk about things like Blake Seven,
because it's intelligent, and it made you think, it made you feel, it entertained you, it was deep, it had power behind it. You know, you can look beyond the costuming, you can look beyond the wobbly sets or whatever, and enjoy it for the actual thought that went into it. You know, the story, the characters. That's one of the things I must admit I do kind of miss with much as I like a lot of the modern, well, the modern up until, you know, the early New Who. There was a massive great lack of disused power stations and quarries. Power stations and quarries. That's all you need. Science fiction right there. Yeah. Alien planet, alien base, or, like, you know, planet base, whatever, you know. Yeah, every planet had, like, some, you know, tall grass, you know, and rocky, you know, rocky caves. But that's the kind of thing, though, you know, that is sorely missing. Now you have budget and money for everything and all these investments, because the BBC is not paying for any of it. It's all been outsourced to every other bugger. So, like with Disney, for example, who are funding it, and yeah, you got all this money, but then you get all these stupid people who spend the money on just making everything look really saturated with color and CGI, and that's it. You know, no one's thinking about the story anymore. I'll just stick an old crap on it, put the logo on it. Yeah, that'll do. Big bangs, lots of bloody CGI monsters and effects, and everyone's like, "Oh, that's amazing, best thing ever."
I was saying back at the
I want my monsters made of cardboard and polystyrene, bitch.
Yes. I was saying back at the beginning of the statement, for most of it, most of the quote aliens in Blake 7 were even
Not the
more,
best.
No, I was to say, well, a lot of them were even more humanoid than the Star Trek original series. They were they were Pamela Sailor in green paint. They were Brian Blessed in well, Brian Blessed just being Brian Blessed. Let's be honest.
Well, that is always Brian Blessed.
They were Carol Royal in a tight latex suit with weird hat. Not that I remember these many. They were. I said they were the Hours. They were the system. Some of the system obviously were androids. The Hour ones were humanoids.
Mm-hmm.
But the occasional aliens you get, but the really really weird small shrunken head things, and I
mean, it kind of made Doctor Who's monsters look way better because the Blake 7 aliens were probably the weakest aspect of Blake 7.
Yeah, definitely. But at least Blake 7.
But we love it. We love it.
Well, exactly. We could do it because it was. Yes, exactly. Dan. Yes, I'm saying. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah. Because the Federation it was a Terran Federation. It spread out across, the quadrants of the galaxy, and so you would expect it to kind of have this kind of utilitarian look to it.
Yeah.
That it's not done for luxury, and I like that. And some of the sort of more sort of, if you look at the costumes that the regular people were wearing, were quite what's the word, like
utilitarian.
Well, utilitarian, but also kind of very sort of almost middle age. Sort of medieval almost. Like paupers, that sort of big belts and buckles on and studs, It kind of feudal. That's the word I was looking for. Feudal, and I kind of like that. It's a bit of an. And then you had like Gambit. You had all this sort of excess and everything, sort of very disco, isn't it? I kind of like. You can imagine. It might look silly to us now, but in the future, fashion could end up going through sort of like a cycle where it looks like 1970s again. Hyper whatever, weird. Like in Blake 7 and Doctor Who, everyone's got, it's in the future because everyone's wearing silver with big shoulders, pointy shoulders. So why not? That could happen. I mean, it's totally impractical, but it could happen.
I'm actually now having to think when
oh, brilliant, Darren.
When Buck Rogers came out.
Yeah. I have to admit, I was one of those that ended up watching Buck Rogers and totally forgetting Doctor Who was on. I was only young.
I was going to say now. I suspect quite a few people watched Buck Rogers for one of two reasons. I watched it because of Erin Gray. I suspect a lot of people watched it because of
Wilma Deering.
I watched it for Wilma Deering. I suspect a lot of people may have watched it for Gil Gerard because in some cases they were receiving instructions from the ether. Because they were both. Someone said this. I remember a comment about the difference between American TV and British TV, and it's the same in soaps and it is in sci-fi. The most famous one being if you see any of the things about the appalling attempt to do an American version of Red Dwarf. But the basic difference is that everybody in American sci-fi is beautiful people. Everyone in everyone in Dallas is glamorous. Everyone in Denison is glamorous. Everyone in Buck Rogers is buff and fit,
But everyone in Blake 7 looks like somebody you'd meet down the supermarket.
Yeah, and they're not to say they're unattractive.
No,
no,
not at all. But they're not, super tweaked and honed, and the dad bods galore, really, isn't it? But Blake. Blake 7. If you look at Avon, he's clearly Han Solo. He really is. But I prefer him to Han Solo any day of the week.
I was going to say the difference being no one would argue that Avon shot first.
No, he shot first. That's why I love him so much more. And with Buck Rogers, I have to admit, I was a big fan of Buck Rogers as a kid. And yes, like Jim the Viking, I watched him with the tiny annoying robot. Yes. Bitty Twiggy. That's it, Twicky, wasn't it? And then I had the wind up Twicky. And I had the what was it? What do they call the little shuttle ship? The fighters. I had one of those, the die-cast one, and I had the Buck Rogers doll figure as well, and I had the helmet with the microphone thing pulled down. Yeah. I had all the things. It was very uncomfortable, that bloody thing. I remember that.
Buck Rogers had.
And the pajamas. I had the pajamas. I had the Buck Rogers pajamas.
I think Buck Rogers. Mr. AWK saying, "Don't forget Flash Gordon." I can never forget Princess Aura. Flash Gordon. No, what else? The thing what got me was though. But I was actually. I actually understood when I watched Buck Rogers, the first one. I actually understood the in joke where you've got Buck and an old friend of woman's called Colonel Gordon arguing about Colonel Gordon's obviously a lot older than Buck, and Buck is saying, he's saying, he's saying I've been in a long time. Buck turns around and says, because obviously Buck's been asleep for 100 years. So, I'm older than you, something like that. I mean, you think, and Colonel Gordon turns around back to him and says something along the lines of, "You might be surprised," or something like that. The in joke being that the actor playing Colonel Gordon was a certain Buster Crabbe.
Ah, yes.
Who had played both Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers.
Yes.
Back in the 30s and 40s.
Yes.
And I actually got the in joke because I recognised,
Brilliant. Yeah. And you can find the old Flash Gordon what do they call it, the sort of matinee adventures, on YouTube. There's I think they've got all of them on YouTube.
Somewhere I've got the first series of Flash Gordon Saturday morning things on DVD somewhere. Let's say on the first one with the blonde Dale. I'm wondering. You think all these things we're talking about now, and we're talking about these. I was just say. Blake 7, 40 years after it finished. We're going back to Buck Rogers, 40. Backwards and forwards and back and because these things last.
They're enduring.
They're enduring because
they're not disposable. They're not forgettable. And I think the problem with modern Doctor Who is it is increasingly so clear that it's forgettable and it is disposable.
Yeah,
and it has been at least for the last 5 or 6 years.
Because as we said, they're right. We said it's. I've always said science fiction. I think more than any other genre is an ideal setting for telling thought-provoking stories, for making people think, for making points about Oh,
Well, then what the modern
sorry.
world? But I think
Yes.
I think what happens with science fiction, successful science fiction holds a mirror to the world you're in, but it's set in a removed. It's removed enough from where you are at to a universe or a world that is different enough to give that reflection some power, because it's removed enough from where you are to actually look at it more objectively.
Well, yeah, definitely. I mean, famously, Star Trek: The Original Series was famous for that, in that you've got episodes which look at Vietnam. You've got episodes which basically are looking at race relations. You've got, back in the 60s when, unlike now, unlike in the 90s, before we were back in, when relations were problems in America, you've got you've got things that look at, obviously because it's an American series from an American point of view, but as I said earlier, Blake 7, you look at it from a certain point of view, what our heroes do from a certain point of view, they're the terrorists.
Well, yeah, you have to look at it.
Criminals.
You have to look at it in that context, because at the end of the 70s, early 80s, you had that going on.
Yeah,
you had all sorts. You have to look at the politics at the time, and also bearing in mind it's still only a few years on from the Second World War. It's still the post-war generation, so you still have these sort of fears of the rise of collectivist authoritarian tyrannies, and warnings of that, but also the danger of zealotry, the danger of extremism or acts of violence, or what's freedom worth, in all these sort of big bold questions, very existential questions of our age and of that time as well, and I think those are still eternally sort of resonant themes. I think as we sort of drift ever closer to authoritarian tyranny once again, it almost seems as if it's sort of due a renaissance.
But like 7, the Federation were with the good guys.
Oh well, yeah. I mean, you could argue. I mean, I was watching. It's funny that I was watching Dalek Invasion of Earth, the film, the 60 was it 66 film with Peter Cushing last night on the Blu-ray, and me and my friend were watching it, and I was just thinking, like, so the Daleks are this authoritarian empire that want to drag this planet as a moon to use it as a base. I was like, wait a minute, this is fucking Star Wars. It was Star Wars 11 years before Star Wars. I was just my housemate was like, all right. Sorry, I've got dessert being delivered, so I'm going to have to make a move in a minute.
That's good timing, actually, because we'd normally like to do sort of just a couple of hours or so for these.
Oh, brilliant! So it was just funny that struck us when we were watching that last night, and it's these archetypes, isn't it? These archetypal themes that crop up again and again and again in science fiction.
Yeah.
And I think that if those themes speak eternal, then I think you really need to kind of, it's not necessarily, you don't really need to reinvent the wheel. I think you just need to use science fiction as a constant reminder of the price of freedom, and I think that that's always something that can eternally be explored, and I think Blake 7 did that brutally. And I think it didn't pull punches, and I think that it endures and it stands very much on its own as an example of British science fiction made for an intelligent audience that doesn't patronize you, that has all these eternal themes and doesn't hold the truth from you.
Yeah.
No matter how uncomfortable that may be, or how deflating that can be, especially with the ending, I think that sometimes can be a stark reminder that, you're faced against something powerful. You can fail. You can fail, or you will fail. It's inevitable. Yeah. That's a very bleak outlook, but but it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't sort of move that story forward in future, perhaps.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I can see plenty of scope for especially if you get in the sort of format where you don't necessarily have to have the same actors, the voice, sort of animated CGI AI or whatever. As you said, exactly that. What happened? Did the Federal? I mean, you think about the big bad in the last episode of Blake 7. The one person we never see is
Servalan. Yeah,
we never actually,
Well, her contract ended the day, like the episode before or something, didn't it? So she wasn't contracted. Right. So rather than having to sign another contract, they just decided to go with that. I would have loved it if she would have just turned up at the last minute, just gloated. That's been fantastic. But hey ho, maybe in the future when we have AI, we can sort of, tweak it a bit.
The thing is, exactly, the authority wasn't even involved. Always involved.
But if you also notice as well that the troopers in that have the Federation logo on the helmets, which is a first time. I don't think they have those on their helmets. Prior to that, they got a different symbol in there. So maybe they weren't real Federation agents, or maybe they were another group, or who knows. That's the thing with it. You can do whatever you want with that ending. You can take whatever. Some people watch it and they go, I can't believe that just happened, and it's ruined everything for me. Or they can watch it and go, well, actually, you can see where that may have gone or what could have happened. And that's great, so you can leave that open-ended. It's a bit like the is Deckard a replicant? It's that kind of question. It's very open-ended, and it ends on such a way that you can sort of imagine it, into its conclusion. Anyway, I better go because I'm going to have melting ice cream. That's not fun. But Colin, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem, mate.
I love talking about Blake 7. That's why I leapt at the chance. Any more of these? I'll be there.
Well, we'll see. We've got a few things. We don't necessarily tend to plan massively for. I'll definitely keep you up to speed if we come up with any more of these things. As I said, I've got 40 years, 50 years of science fiction watching. Back from when you're not that much far behind me for when our childhood, when we actually had really good TV.
Yeah. I caught the tail end of it. I mean, unfortunately for me, I just was born at the wrong time, so I only got 2 seasons of Tom Baker.
Alex is he's younger than both of us, but he is a massive Jerry Anderson fan. We're talking about we wanting to do some Jerry Andersons on LinkedIn.
Absolutely,
we've got a lot of stuff there, mate.
British science fiction, you can't beat.
Yeah, no, you can't. You really can't.
Americans can try. They can try. They can try.
Yeah.
Star Trek, good. Blake said better.
Yeah. All I will say is, yes, fine. Robert Heinlein, absolutely. One of the top ones. But we've got H.G. Wells and we've got Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, take that. Right, my big thanks to your wonderful mods and your audience there. Thanks so much for being so welcoming. It's been great. And I hope to speak to you. Follow me on Twitter or X, whatever there is now. And follow my inane babblings and whatever.
Yep. You're on at actually what I'll do is I'll when we finish the stream, if I thought about it, I'll put your Twitter link in the description.
Sure.
And in the meantime, the only thing I can say is if I can find the right button to click on. Thanks for listening, folks. I hope you all enjoyed it. And remember, whatever you may think, actually remember, Avon lives.
Avon lives.